signing. However, the process must be a multi-dimensional transition. By multi-dimensional transition, I mean, to make it simpler, we aim a process to renegotiate a new social contract through a constitutive process. I think that was what the people of Afghanistan is seeking at the moment, and we are endorsing that and we are following that. That constitutive process must be owned by the people of Afghanistan. We categorically reject the fact that the legitimacy of a state should come from the power of conquest or from we call it a God center. We reject the feelings of the leader of the Taliban who feel that he replaced God to rule the country and to define the rules of living in Afghanistan. We reject such a God syndrome in 21st century, and that's not serving only Afghanistan but also the international community. What we are hoping in the coming to finish my handheld request, I'll make it very simple and very practical. First of all, the people of Afghanistan, I think, deserve, after 20 years of partnership with the NATO, with the collective West, some sort of sympathy and empathy, and also moral support. My humble first request would be specifically to the member of this chamber that please keep your emotional support from people of Afghanistan, especially from the war. This is the most vulnerable time for them. Please listen to them, please try to amplify their voices. I think that emotional support is a moral obligation, a collective moral obligation, a sign of sisterhood solidarity, which needs to be expressed and illustrated in the first century, considering all these chaotic situations that we are facing at the moment. My second humble request would be political support for the greater opposition, for the democratic opposition of Afghanistan. I'm sad to say, and I would like to inform you that most of your policy is dictated by the Taliban in Kabul. The Taliban in Kabul are determining and dictating your diplomats to whom you meet and to whom they should not meet. This is, I think, this is not a shame for Afghanistan, but this is a shame for a cloud of democracy in the 21st century. And please remember that most of these diplomats who enjoy manufactured consent, most of the diplomats who receive a controlled information and the psyops of the Taliban will never give you accurate information what is happening in Afghanistan. You need a verification process of what's happening in Afghanistan beyond the conventional way of receiving briefing on Afghanistan. I think it's important to note, and that accountability, that transparency is needed for Europe at the moment. Lastly, my humble request would be, please also don't be trapped by that immigration deportation policy. I fully understand the frustration and the panic. I fully understand how complicated this would be to deal with it, but there should be a cost and benefit analysis of such a policy. You could not sold the country, you could not betray 20 millions of women of Afghanistan for the sake of resending a few hundred criminals that they have every opportunity to come back tomorrow to Europe. And you cannot trade the future of millions of these radical, indoctrinated young jihadis for the sake of sending millions of dollars and in the name of humanitarian assistance. My final point, Europe still has a lot of leverages. I'm sure there is another very, I think, misleading soft power, you have your political power, you have your humanitarian aid, you have your mission. I think the question needs to be asked specifically, madam. We are hoping that you may one day bring in this chamber the delegations of who are dealing with Afghanistan and ask them tough questions, how they have utilized those leverages. It's not about not having that leverages, but taking the most out of those leverages. Thank you so much once again, Madam Chair. It was very helpful.
Thank you so much, Abdullah. Now I'm going to turn the floor to Nagee, who is the political committee head of the Afghanistan Freedom Front. I would like to kind of build on the conversation around the armed struggle inside of Afghanistan. I'd be curious from your perspective, why do Afghans continue with the armed resistance, and how strong is that resistance? I think the perception that many of us have in the West is that it's rather weak and the Taliban have control on the ground. So I'd be curious for your assessment, and also how the international community, if at all, is supporting that armed resistance. What kind of interaction do you have with the international community? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. The honorable members of the Belguim Senat, distinguished panelists, and guests. First, I would like to thank the Belguim Foundation for Democracy and the network for all working that we are here and such a beautiful story. Thank you very much. You see how I'm here on behalf of Afghanistan Freedom Front, for those who know exactly what it is. Afghanistan Freedom Front is a political military organization was formed about 2 years ago, a few months after Taliban took control of Afghanistan. The front composed from the political figures and former members of the Afghanistan Army, Afghanistan police officers, and the people who fought side by side with the NATO and international forces against the terrorism for many years. Regarding to your question about the first part, so we all know that the armed resistance is not anyone's first choice. It is not a fancy choice. So, but to reach to a clear understanding, first, we must know what the Taliban exactly are and how they treat with the opposition and even with the ordinary people. Taliban is an ideological group with a very simple dignity perspective. They do not recognize opposition, political opposition. They do not recognize even the peaceful participants. In the first days when they took Afghanistan country, they opened fire on a woman peaceful demonstration in major cities in Kabul, Helmand, Kandahar, everywhere. So many of the women participants were arrested and tortured in the Taliban prisons. and some of them sexual abuse and detentions. Right now, the thousands of the people are in the Taliban prisons just because they are become from some place like Panjshir, Palawan, and Andhra, or somewhere else, the areas that armed resistance take place. Or thousands of other people are in prison just because their father or their brother or other relatives just served in the army or the police during the Republic time. For the ordinary people, if, for example, some of the people have a guest from their relatives, for example, someone brothers comes from the other city and want to stay in his brother's house, this ordinary people have to report to the Taliban. Tonight, my brother is in my house. Otherwise, they will punish. So, it is very similar. You can imagine something similar the Nazi period. But the difference is that today Taliban has access to a very good technology like CCTV, every videos to control every single one. So in this environment, the fear is spread throughout the society. And the organizing, the armed resistance in this situation is become much difficult than what people can imagine. That's where the reasons that the resistance were weak yet. But the important part of the story is that the situation is seriously changing. The key point of this is that the specific part of the opposition were believe in dialogue, national dialogue, and they tried many. During the past 2 years, the significant part of the Taliban oppositions tried to negotiate with the Taliban. They tried with the original countries, with the United Nations, but the Taliban did not respond. Because although we knew that the Taliban did not respond to the national dialogue because they are not believing. Since 2005, Afghanistan established a commission, a peace commission in 2005, which is led by the former Afghanistan president, Mr. Sifatullah Mujahid. And it's continued until the end of 2020 when we have a high council for the peace. Mr. Fijani was a deputy of our peace ministry. He was served for many times to bring the peace with the Taliban and negotiate with them.
I tested the peace.
Yes, we tested the peace before that. So, in Doha, Taliban negotiated several months with the United States and finally agreed. But they did not negotiate with the Afghanistan delegation who was on the same scene. But they didn't, because Taliban do not believe on the national plan. So in this situation, what can we do? That's why we are doing the arms. The same that Europe did against the Nazis, the same that Europe did against the fascists. And Taliban is a combination of all. So, about your second part of the question, about the support of the national security, if I come to the short answer, yes, that's a clear and short answer is unfortunately no. Our international, our former international allies, that some of them have signed the security agreement with us, and we fought sideways against the international terrorists for many years. They left the fight unfinished. Meanwhile, the terrorism are existing, and they remain, and they rebelled, and they are much stronger now, because they have a country that they are moved everywhere, and they have a lot of equipment and facilities to rebel with the same ideologies, with the same goals. So after the Taliban took the country, at that time, before that, the Republican time, some of our neighbors, some of the regions also thought that if the Taliban came back, they will be in a good situation, the security. That now we know that the Taliban, the Pakistan is already suffering from the increasing insecurity. Okay. And also the South Asian countries, there is many border clashes between the Taliban and the South Asian countries. So the terrorism is not only the Afghanistan problem that exists outside, but it is an international challenge. So that's why that we I will finish. The international community and the Europe should do some, take some actions, and it's necessary. First, we hope that the international community will continue to address the suffering of Afghan women and recognize the gender. So, the second, it is important to recognize the Taliban as a terrorist organization, because they are. And thirdly, we encourage the international community to avoid normalizing offshore engagement with the Taliban, because they are not a legal state, they are not a legal government, they are a terrorist group. Thank you very much.
Next, I'm going to turn to Nagara, who is the reason we are all sitting here today through her work at the Afghanistan Women's Diplomatic Network. So we're incredibly grateful for you being here. As a former diplomat, I think you are, uniquely positioned to be able to talk about what diplomats like yourself, who no longer find themselves with a government to represent, what that's like. You continue to work through the Afghanistan Women's Diplomatic Network, as well as other Afghan ambassadors who continue to work in various capacities. And I'm curious about what role you see for diplomats and diplomacy in the resistance, and how you continue to use the networks that you've developed in order to advance the rights of Afghan women and all the people of Afghanistan.
Thank you, Marlene. First of all, I want to express my sincere appreciation to the Belguim Senat and especially thanks for the movement for Ghana as here. For me, diplomatic or political, it's very personal. Many years ago, when I was a young student at school, at the first time Taliban took over, they simply announced that the girls cannot go to the school. And I was very early understood how it's worse that you understood you lost your basic rights. Many years later, Afghanistan turned a different chapter. We had the opportunity to rebuild our country and work toward democracy, education, and engagement with the international community. During that time, I had the honor to become a diplomat and represent Afghanistan. I was very proud to represent Afghanistan, a country that believes in democracy, the right of the woman, education for girls, and cooperation with the international community. It was a period when many Afghanistan women were working, studying, and participating in the public life. We believed that our country was moving forward. Unfortunately, everything changed very suddenly. With the fall of the Republic, many of us not only lost our position, but also the progress of Afghanistan had built over many years. The Taliban openly announced that they were willing to cooperate with the male diplomats, but not with the women diplomats. Again, they made me feel how, as a young girl who just heard that she was banned from school, just my gender. For me, this was unacceptable. Not this time. So I decided that even if I'm not able to return to my country and work inside, I will continue to represent Afghanistan. I will speak loudly and confidently about the reality of what's happening in Afghanistan, in my country. Many Afghanistan diplomats today are still represent Afghanistan abroad. Despite the situation, women diplomats and former diplomats continue to play an important role, even when we cannot work inside Afghanistan. We still carry responsibility to defend important values such as human rights, education for girls, and participation of women in society. Networks such as Afghanistan Women's Diplomatic and other diplomats platforms help keep those voices connected. Through those networks, women leaders and former diplomats coordinate their efforts, share information, and advocate together at the international level. This cooperation is extremely important because it keeps international attention on Afghanistan, and especially on the situation of Afghanistan women and girls. Some Afghanistan ambassadors who continue to hold their diplomatic seats also play an important symbolic and practical role. Symbolically, they represent the continuation of Afghanistan engagement with the international community, and practically, they can speak with the governments, international organizations, civil society to explain the reality on the ground and encourage constructive engagement. Diplomats contribute to what we could call peaceful diplomatic resistance. Our tools are advocacy and international cooperation. Through those tools, we try to maintain pressure for positive change while also keeping channels open for humanitarian needs and future dialogues. At the same time, I would like to speak honestly about the Taliban. For many years, people in the international community, for many people in the international community, the Taliban still appear as a political actor that can be engaged through normal diplomatic dialogue. But for Afghanistan people, especially for women of Afghanistan, the reality is very different. We know that the Taliban, we know Taliban very well. Afghanistan fought with those groups for more than 25 years. During these years, we lost thousands of people, civil societies, teachers, journalists, and many innocent families. This history is very real for us. Of course, in diplomacy, we believe in dialogue. Dialogue is important. And to prevent conflict that reach for solutions, but dialogue can only work when both sides believe in a basic principle such as the rights of people, respect for society, and the values. Unfortunately, the Taliban are an ideological group that does not believe in this principle. They do not believe in women's rights, they do not believe in democratic participation, and they have shown very lately willingness to listen either to Afghanistan people or to the international community. Okay, to the condition for the international community can continue. Okay, first, it's very important to maintain unified international position toward Afghanistan. When countries coordinate their policies to speak with one voice, advocacy for human rights becomes much stronger. Second, engagement with the Taliban should be linked to clear, including access to education for girls, participation of the women in public life, and respect for basic human rights. And third, the governments and international organizations should regularly consult with the Afghanistan women, former diplomats, and civil society networks.
Thank you, Nagara. And now we're going to turn to Ráḥile, who's the head of the Dostum Social and Cultural Foundation and a prominent women's rights activist. Ráḥile, I'd love to hear from you specifically about how you see the role of women within the Afghan resistance to the Taliban, and the activities that you're undertaking within the resistance. Thank you.
Thank you. In the name of Allah, the most kind, the most merciful. Distinguished participants, respected colleagues and friends of Afghanistan, please accept my warm greeting. At the beginning, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the organizers and to host country for convening this important discussion and for providing a valuable platform to raise the voice of the women of Afghanistan during these sensitive and challenging times. At a time when the world's attention is often focused on other global crises, such as the gathering reminds us that the people of Afghanistan, especially Afghan women, must not be forgotten. Your commitment reflects a strong sense of global commitment and human solidarity. Today, Afghanistan is facing one of the deepest political, social, and humanitarian crises. And this contemporary story of Afghan women who make up more than half of the country's population are being systematically deprived of their most basic human, civil, and Islamic rights. However, the challenge before us is not only about gender, it is about governance, social justice, and the future of an entire nation. The international community must help manifold pressure on the Taliban to end their policies of ethnic discrimination and the targeting of former personal associated with the Republic. action, such as the systematic seizure of land and properties belonging to Turkey commitments in northern Afghanistan. The forced displacement of local residents and rootless resides and associations of members of other ethnic groups stand in clear contradictions to the Taliban's claims of providing security in the country. These actions have raised serious concerns among the people of Afghanistan, if such as policies continue, ethnic division and grievances across the country will deepen, and the capacity for peaceful territories among the people of Afghanistan will be completely destroyed. In addition, the being deprived of their rights to education, Afghan women are being pushed out our many jobs in government, initiation and international organization, and nearly all Ethiopia's jobs which they call socials, their livelihood have been closed. Furthermore, the Taliban, though both in national and international legitimacy, they neither represent the will of the people nor respected international communities. Governance without the public participation, election, and constitution accepted by the people, and respect for the fundamental rights of citizens cannot claim legitimacy. Marshal Abdurrashid Dostum, the leader and founder of the National Islamic Movement of Afghanistan, as an influential figure in Afghanistan affairs, has made tireless efforts to mobilize prominent political leaders, national figures, representatives of civil society and women activists. Through these efforts, he has strengthened the foundation for broad anti-among democratic and anti-Taliban governance groups. Ultimately, these innovations led to the establishment of the Ali Council of National Resistance for the Salvation of Afghanistan. The future of Afghanistan cannot be built without the participation of Afghan women. No signal groups or individuals can resolve Afghanistan's complex crisis alone. The only stable and sustainable part of the crisis and the creation of an inclusive political system, one that includes the freedom of the people of Afghanistan and is founded upon the principle of the Church of the United Nations and the various international conventions. I formally managed the activities of the Doster Foundation with the clear objectives of supporting the oppressed and vulnerable Afghan people. In addition, I am actively engaged in cultural and social efforts aimed at the advocacy for the security legitimates rights of Afghan women. Thank you for your attention. Katakan rahmat, tashakkur, teramanana.
Thank you, Rakhila. And now I'm very conscious we're behind time, but our last speaker is Khaalid Pashtoon, who is a member of Afghanistan's national parliament and has been incredibly active across various Afghanistan opposition platforms, including the Vienna process. So I'd be very curious for you about the state of the opposition. As I had mentioned previously, there are lots of perceptions around fragmentation, but you have been part of a variety of initiatives that have sought to bring the Afghan opposition together, including the Vienna process. And I'm curious what you see as the goals of these initiatives, how much they're working together, and whether you think they're making progress in getting the Taliban to agree to some type of intra-Afghan dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Marlene John. Nice and kind introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, first I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the organizer, to the host country for convening this important discussion and for providing a platform to amplify the voice of Afghan women during such challenging, sensitive time. Is it too far? Since August 2021, when the Republic of Afghanistan collapsed, the Taliban took power, more than 4.5 years have passed. During the first time, the struggle of the Afghan people against the Taliban authoritarian system has continued both inside Afghanistan and among Afghans living abroad. Afghans outside the country have become very active politically and socially, although we are divided into many political, civic, and social groups. Their activity continue with a strong determination. Women's movement and female activists have played a particularly important role and have given a strong energy and visibility to the Afghan struggle for rights and freedoms. In general, many Afghan political figures and activists abroad are trying to come together under national umbrella for the future of Afghanistan. Among the important platforms are the Supreme Council of National Resistance for Salvation of Afghanistan, the National Assembly for Salvation of Afghanistan, and National Movement for Peace and Justice, and also the Vienna process. The Vienna process is currently working on strategic documents for democratic future of Afghanistan to the National Commission of the Vienna process. Consultation on this draft strategic documents are ongoing, and the work of the Commission will be presented at the 6th Vienna Conference on Afghanistan in spring of 2026. The final document is expected to focus on women's rights, civil society activists. While this support is very important, the broader democratic political opposition has received far less attention. At the same time, there has been an emphasis on non-violent engagement with the Taliban. During the past 4.5 years, many Afghan opposition groups have tried to support this approach in the hope that Taliban would implement the Doha Agreement. There was hope that the Taliban would form an inclusive government, respect human rights, and cooperate in the fight against terrorism and narcotics. Unfortunately, these expectations have not been fulfilled. Inside Afghanistan, the crisis is not limited only to women's rights and the restriction on education. Political opposition is also not allowed to operate. Even peaceful political activities are prohibited during these years. Afghan opposition groups repeatedly requested permission from a different country to hold formal in-person political meetings, but these requests were often not supported. Meanwhile, assistance to the Taliban government, both open and indirect, continues. The humanitarian situation in Afghanistan remains extremely serious. Poverty, hunger, and unemployment are widespread. Recession, corruption, and intimidation continues. Many former government officials and security personnel are persecuted, detained, or subject to torture. Therefore, we believe that the European Union and United States should broaden their engagement. In addition to supporting women and civil society, they should also engage with and support democratic political opposition groups. Such engagement will help unite the opposition and strengthen the credible political alternative for Afghanistan. At the same time, it would send a clear message to Taliban leadership that the international community expects real political change. If the Taliban fulfill their commitment to move toward an inclusive political system, it would benefit Afghanistan and regional stability. If they do not, stronger international pressure will be necessary to encourage compliances with international agreement, including the commitment made in Doha. The Afghan people deserve a future that is democratic, inclusive, and peaceful. Thank you very much for your attention.
Hello. All right. We, as I mentioned, very behind time, but we do want to take some questions from the audience. So I have time for 2 questions. So perhaps you and you? Yes.
Thank you, everyone. First of all, I want to thank you, everyone, to fighting Taliban. My question is very short. We know the narrative of Taliban based on political Islam. I want to know what is your narratives for you in the future. A Sikh and a Hindu citizen of Afghanistan can be legally the president of Afghanistan. Thank you.
Thank you very much for organizing this important event. My name is Elizabeth, by the way, and thanks for organizing this. I hope this is not the first and not the last. It should continue because this is the first time after 5 years that I see that the Belgium is put their way to a step further for bring the opposition. That's very important. And I hope next time more civil society and activists all come and talk in this room. I have a short question, and if you allow me, very short comment. So my question is from both of you, especially for the freedom of, let's say, military and political organization. Without the support of international community, do you believe that it's easy to make free Afghanistan? And so I hope that there is any support from the international community. And my suggestion from the Belgian government, especially as Vivian knows that 2 weeks ago I was in the Parliament of Brussels and I gave like a 10 part of like a homework for the senators and also for the MEPs to talk with the Belgian authorities and the government. Just small commitment or reflect for that. Why the Belgium and not the other countries that bring the subject of gender apartheid as a crime against humanity and also not recognized as a gender apartheid, a gender racial, and we saw it in the years ago with the the African countries. So if we are not recognizing that in the international court and not bring that subject there, I think it's more difficult that we never be succeed to bring and recognize gender apartheid. Thank you.
I'm so sorry. We have to turn it now to our speakers for final comments.
About the gentleman question. Absolutely, yes. This is what we are fighting. So Afghanistan is a very diverse country, and the Sikh and Hindus are one of the side, one of the parts, an important part of, especially culture. They are one of the very important part of the Afghanistan history, Afghanistan culture, and Afghanistan people. And absolutely, your answer is yes. There is no argument. About the question of the security, something is changing internally and externally as well. I forgot to complete a part of your answer. I say that a significant part of Taliban organization tried to negotiate peace, but they disappointed. They understood there is no alternative but to do the armed resistance and political effort together at the same time. And that's why I believe that the situation will change in the near future. So, as well as about the international community, I think the international community did support. For example, now the Taliban, after 4.5 years, they are not recognized by the international community, and I think it is a very. So they can do more, but I think okay, we had to do some things more to convince the international community to support more. It is the politically to show that there is some plan, some attractive plan for the future, the better future, as well as some things about the roadmap, the unity, or the plan, some things. And we are about to do, and we are trying to do, and 3 years is not too much for this big state of this, making this, and doing this big citizens.
First question, very practical. I'll make sure to carry that message. About the quality and quantity of the resistance in Afghanistan. We're continuously hearing in the West that there is no resistance in Afghanistan and they're weak. This is exactly acting as a spokesperson of the Taliban. That's the similar narrative that's being pushed not only by Taliban but also by the Western governments in the past 5 years as well. And there is a commonality, sadly, that most of these well-dressed with the name tag European diplomats, they're representing the Taliban when it comes to promoting their narrative in the West. If you look at if you examine the strength of the resistance in Afghanistan, you have to look at both in quantity and qualitatively. In quantity, in quality, in the past 5 years, the resilience that the people of Afghanistan has shown. We have talked about, and where in the history of the world you would see a woman that they would risk their life and go against the Taliban on a daily basis. I think that level of resilience has not been appreciated and acknowledged yet. And this is the same with the soldiers on the mountain. I have my friends, my colleagues there in the mountains without any logistical corridor, without any support, with international condemnation and pressure. They are there to fight and defend their places. If that would have happened somewhere else, I'm sure a Hollywood movie would have come out of it as well. Look at the legitimacy and credibility as well. There is no survey in Afghanistan to see how many percentage of the people of Afghanistan is after fighting against the Taliban. It's so sad to see some of the Western organizations, including the UN, by doing, 300 people interviewed, they will come up with a conclusion that the people of Afghanistan is not supporting any fight against the Taliban. But nobody is questioning the methodology, the numbers that they are coming. Look to the frustration of the people on social media. Look to the frustration of the people, the women around the country and the West. Look at the general sentiment of the people. Look into the streets of Kabul. That will also tell you something. And that's very correlated with the quantity of, with the quality of resistance in Afghanistan. With the quantity, I would humbly request Madam Senator, yourself and your colleague, at least it would be a very big legacy for Europe and for yourself as well, to put the mandate of an investigation on the behavior of the Taliban against their political dissident, including our prisoners. Why that mandate is not included in the EU mission in Afghanistan? Why they're silent? Ask the EU ambassador in Kabul how many times he visited in the past 5 years. Once the pension years, the motherland of the new resistance in Afghanistan. If she or he is not doing that, why? What's the political reason behind that? I think these questions are important to be asked, and that would definitely tell you about the credibility and legitimacy of the resistance in Afghanistan. Lastly, I think it's extremely frustrating to see that we entitle ourselves with the politics of moralization. Sometimes we feel holy and we tell the people to go and fight. We were in Afghanistan, we were sitting in our own country. This was the collective West come to Afghanistan and said, let's do the war on terror. And after 20 years, now they are playing holy. They are condemning us, blaming us for what they have done and what we have done collectively. And now they become more a moral judge and dictating the means of our resistance in Afghanistan. I think this is where the transparency and accountability is needed. I humbly request the government, the democracy is about accountability and questioning, and this mission needs to be questioned strongly. Why the Europe is still trying to dictate, to shape their policies towards Afghanistan based on those soft areas that the Taliban are wishing to have that relationship. I think these questions are important, and thank you so much. I thought I should add that context.
Thank you so much. With that, I hope we can conclude this discussion as we are quite over time, and we have now closing remarks from Senator Reed. Thank you so much.
Dear friends, wow, what an afternoon. I really would like to thank all the panelists for their important testimonies today. Really thank you, all of you. It was emotional, it was strong, so really thank you. I want to apologize. Our Commissioner Ajalabi is tied up in the European Parliament and she cannot be with us, so I apologize for her. So let me give a minute of conclusion, and I would like to start by thanking the services of the Parliament, and especially at this because they've been doing a great job to organize all this. So thank you very much. And also Marlene from my office, who really helped, and thank you to you too. Today, I think we have made one thing was very clear. The struggle of Afghan women is not only a struggle for their rights, it's really one for the very idea of democracy. And we really recognize it. Because when half of the population is being silenced or erased, there is no democracy, no legitimate political future. Cannot be. What we have heard today also is not only testimony. It's resistance, it's courage, and it's political leadership, often at personal risk. So really, we are with you. And all this reminds us of something essential, I think, is that Afghan women are really actors of change, leaders of resistance, and architects of a future that will include them. So really thank you for everything you are doing. And our response here in Europe must be clear. We understood that, and I really would like to thank Sophie Vilmes for her words, but also really Isabelle Romme, Ambassador Romme. For coming, especially here. You are a champion of women, of Afghan women's rights, and I really want to acknowledge that because you travel the world, you go, you encounter, and not only do you listen, but you are aware of the importance to amplify the message. And we heard how important that is to amplify the message. And every time you ensure that Afghan women are not only spoken about, but that they are systematically included in every conversation, in every policy, in every diplomatic effort concerning Afghanistan, and that is so important. Because exclusion, and we heard that, is not neutral. Exclusion is a political choice, and so again, I think we need to choose to be on the right side of history, not tomorrow, not conditionally, but now. And we also understood, I really want to make it clear to you, that we cannot accept to normalize a regime that legitimizes exclusion of women. That's obvious. And we will not accept that Afghan women are the price to pay for geological convenience, because that's also what is going on today. And I want to say that clearly. I also would like to thank European Foundation for Democracy, but also Roberta Bonazzi, who said we need to amplify the fact that crime against humanity is gender apartheid is a crime against humanity, and we will flood everyone with that. Because we cannot accept it, not in our name, not at the expense of dignity. And now I invite you for a networking cocktail. Thank you.
تشکر دست مادر خیلی ممنون. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. همراه راحله آقا دوستم عکس گرفتی؟ یه بار باید عکس بگیرم. تشکر شما میتونم انشالله که بتونیم کاری کنیم در آینده. چشم مستعد. آره الله خدا کنه که اگه اینترنت ما ضعیف نشده باشه.